Hello, I'm Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 39 of the Wheatley podcast. Thank you very much for your support during the week, everyone, and a big thank you to Anita last week for coming on to talk about psychotherapy, mental health, all those things. Very informative, very nice to listen back to it as well, because I always say I find I learn a lot more than listening back, because my OCD and my anxiousness will not allow me to concentrate on things for too long. So I'm always thinking, I have to look at the levels and what's the next question, and don't spill your water on the equipment, all those kind of things. So it was great to listen back to. This is our first Zoom experience, so let's hope this goes well, because it's going to have to happen for a few weeks, obviously. Also, if you have any questions for our next episode, which is episode 40, please send them on to our Facebook account or our Instagram or any of those places, and we'll try and answer them for you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well if you can. And this is our Halloween special, because why not? And it'll all become apparent in a minute. But yeah, I'm going to introduce you to our guest. She is a burlesque performer and a horror fanatic. I'm going to say fanatic before asking her, is that a correct word for it? And her name is Michelle Jinks, aka Memphis Shell. How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm good, Derek. How are you keeping?
I'm pretty good, thanks for asking. It's a shame that we can't have you here. But
yeah, I know. Social distancing, though.
Yeah, everything, we have to do everything by the book, because then they'll shut us down. But
yes,
it's how are you? But not going to go too much into it. But how are you keeping with the whole level 5 that's happening now?
I suppose I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
The first lockdown was okay. I am an essential worker. I work for a factory and that builds medical devices. So I have been essential, I suppose, the whole way through this. So not a lot really has changed for me in the sense of work and home.
Yeah.
But there is, I suppose, the social aspect of being able to go out and see friends and perform at gigs and host gigs.
Yes.
So that part I'm definitely missing.
I can imagine, and we will get into that a bit more. But we always ask this first. Could you tell us a short history of your upbringing, please?
So I'm originally from Athlone, and I grew up in the Coosan area. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I suppose it was a very standard Irish upbringing, like kind of everybody I know. You had the house full of kids and really good memories. Let me see. I'm trying to think. Sorry.
Right. That's an upbringing. You don't have to bring us up to today, but because we are obviously going to be dipping back into all of the kind of stuff that makes people, and I guess that starts in your teens, but everybody brings us up to the end of their secondary school and then maybe college, but then it's the rest of the stuff we're gonna talk about it anyway. So, and I always say to people, if you ask me about my upbringing, it'd be very, very much the same. It'd just be this, and that's it, so that's all good. When did you first become aware of mental health?
I suppose it would have been kind of later on in life, because I'm guessing that a lot of people, especially Irish families, when you were growing up, it was never something that was really talked about. If you had anybody in your family who was suffering from depression in any way, you would always be told that their medication was for their stomach. They had a bad stomach, or it was like, oh, it's for their nerves. That's it. Yeah, oh, it's for their nerves.
Yeah.
And it would have never been something that I suppose would have been talked about an awful lot. And I suppose being a teenager and growing up and kind of coming into adulthood, you start discovering all these really strange feelings, and you're not able to put it together what exactly it is. And you go to school, primary school, secondary school, they don't really touch on that a lot. I suppose it's kind of when you go to college and you get I got a little bit older, that I was kind of made aware of all of this that was going on.
Yeah.
Even with, you'd hear of people, unfortunately committing suicide, and you just wouldn't really understand why, I suppose, because you're not in this person's shoes. And like that, it was never really talked about. But yes, I became aware of it kind of more so coming into the college years. And you know, looking into it a bit myself and kind of understanding it then, of like friends and family that I had, that finally understanding that, you know, this is a perfectly, not a perfectly normal thing, but people experience this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of, you know.
It's funny you talk about the tablets and people saying that for your nerves, and you actually mentioned for your stomach. And I used to actually say that to my nieces and nephews, and I'd be staying down the house, and you know, obviously I was protecting them because of how old they were, but it was like that was ingrained in me to say, oh, it's for my stomach. It wasn't even to think of anywhere else. It was just, and now obviously with the podcast and all that, they're fully aware, at least as much as they can be, again, for their age. But I think everybody's got a similar kind of story, in the sense where we get to a certain age and then we realize, oh, well, you know, people have it and they're, you know, being treated for it and whatever it is. But hopefully, and I'd have to speak to people from other countries, I suppose, but hopefully it'll get a bit better and people will start learning a little bit earlier, and then they can kind of tackle it earlier, which would be huge, really.
Yeah, it would help a lot of people. I suppose help is always better than trying to go through it on your own.
Oh God, yeah. And thankfully, like, I realize now when I have started talking about it a bit more, it's certainly people are much more better equipped to kind of deal with it, to be able to talk to me about it and things. And I think that's great, you know. We might get back into a bit of that later on, but so as I said at the start of the show, you're a burlesque performer. So I thought, right, I better like read up on burlesque, because I have, you know, an idea of what it is. Okay. So I had to start from the beginning. So I just want to the listeners, just want to read a tiny little bit of history of burlesque, because it has changed over the years. So I found out burla is Italian for joke, ridicule, or mockery. So in 17th century England, and even back reports, that's probably not the right word, as early as 5 BC in Athens, there was reports of like it was a literary, dramatic, or a musical work intended to cause laughter by caricaturing the manner of serious work or by ludicrous treatment of their subject. So that was like I said, starting in the 17th century. Then we moved into American burlesque. So America gets their hands on it. And then it's an offshoot of Victorian burlesque. So it's incorporated elements of minstrel shows such as songs, comics, sketches, acrobats, magicians, concluded by an exotic dancer or a boxing match. And I find isn't that a strange thing, to like a boxing match or an exotic dancer? It's quite a weird one. So then there was a gradual transition to striptease in the early 20th century, with stars like Gypsy Rose Lee and Sally Rand appeared on the scene in the early 30s. And then now we get back to you on this part, because it's said to be called neo-burlesque now, so which has a nostalgia for the spectacle and the glamour of the classic American burlesque, with stars like Dita Von Teese and Julie Atlas Muse. Muse, is that correct? Muzz?
Yes.
Muzz?
Yes.
Incorporated political satire and performance art into their shows, okay? So that's my little roundup of the history of burlesque, for what it's worth. So, like, Michelle, how did you get involved in burlesque at the start?
How did I get involved? I suppose it was a decision to do something that I had looked into many, many years ago. And like that, I discovered it through Dita Von Teese. Like, I remember she was like going out with Marilyn Manson and back in the day, you know, and I was like, I seen her and I was like, my God, this woman is fantastic. And then I found out that she did burlesque. I looked into it and I thought to myself, oh, I'd love to do something like that. Now, that was very early on. But then I suppose I'm from a small town. So something like that is not exactly I suppose accepted, or at least it wasn't back then. I mean, if there was any sort of, if anybody was bearing anything, everybody was talking about it. You would be the talk of the town. So I kind of left it there, and that was it. And then I was like, still the fascination was always there with it. And I came into my 30s and decided it would be something that I would definitely regret when I got older. I'd be like, I should have done it. So I decided to start looking into it. And thankfully, when I started looking into it, we had Facebook at the time, and it actually gave me that platform to reach out to find somebody who could like lead me in the right direction.
Yeah.
And the steps that I'd need to take to get into the Irish burlesque scene. Because from Athlone, you wouldn't really hear an awful lot. It's very big in the likes of Dublin, Galway, Belfast, Cork.
Yeah.
You know, burlesque would be well known, but I suppose in Athlone, not really.
Yeah.
You know.
So Dita Von Teese was the first on the scene that you would have taken note of, we'll say. And I remember Dita Von Teese, like you said, Marilyn Manson, but she kind of, at the time, she kind of dragged it into the mainstream, something that may have been forgotten about, we'll say, because I read out some names, and I obviously knew Gypsy Rose Lee. I saw the film Gypsy, that's how I know her. But she dragged it kind of back into it. And I remember certain parts, and we'll get into performance as well, like, but I remember certain things she did. She was in this big, tall, I have this thing on I was a young man, and you know, young men are sleazy. So she was in this tall martini glass, and there was one where but it was more like, there was something very theatrical about it, and like, I couldn't quite put my finger on it what it was. I probably could then, but I can't now what it was. But so you were influenced by her, but then when you went searching for I suppose an outlet, when you want to get involved, you had to travel then, did you, to Dublin or Galway or wherever?
Yeah, I had to travel to Dublin.
Okay.
At the time, I was working in a nightclub in town, and I was doing Halloween special effects makeup coming up to Halloween for the staff in this nightclub.
Nice, yeah.
And there was at the time my hair was dark, and I very much went for that Dita Von Teese look, that 1950s pin-up look. And there was a guy, I was doing his makeup, and he said to me, "Oh, you remind me a little bit of Dita Von Teese." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." I was so flattered.
That's nice, yeah.
For anybody who's listening, I do not look like Dita Von Teese. But yeah, and then he started speaking about burlesque, and he had mentioned that the Galway Burlesque Festival was happening.
Okay.
And I looked it up. Yeah, I looked it up on Facebook, and I found one of the organizers, who is Sheer Madness.
Right.
If you like, anybody that knows burlesque or the Irish burlesque scene will know Sheer Madness.
Okay.
Fabulous performer. And I contacted her. I asked her about how would I get my footing into burlesque, and she basically gave me a list of things to do, and I did exactly what she said. She told me to look up some workshops that were coming up in Dublin.
Okay.
So that's exactly what I did. I looked up a few workshops, and the first one I ever took in Dublin was in the Sugar Club, and it was with Miss Polly Ray. She is a UK performer. She ran a show in Soho.
Oh.
I think she's recently had a kid, and I suppose with COVID as well, she's taken a bit of a break, but a stunning performer.
Yeah.
So she did, I suppose, a workshop on the art of the tease. So basically how you would take your glove off, or like, there is actually a technique to all of this.
Yeah,
you know.
Sure, yeah. I watched your videos on YouTube. So again, this idea of you know, the performative arts aspect of it, and the whole suggestiveness, there's a lot to it. And there's also we will talk a bit more about the kind of your kind of side of performing, but there was one where you were the Bride of Frankenstein, and that was like a proper kind of comedic performance, but with some horror involved as well. So there is lots involved in it, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like, I suppose with like classic burlesque, which Dita Von Teese would do a lot of. With classic burlesque, it is the big, beautiful costumes, the big ostrich feather fans. You just have sparkle everywhere, and it is always to like a classic burlesque track.
Yeah.
And then with the likes of the Bride of Frankenstein, that would be like a neo burlesque performance, which you take a character, you tell a story. And that's what I did with the Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah. And so you've seen the video. So the girl, or sorry, Dr. Frankenstein, who
Yes.
was there. It was actually my sister.
Oh, was it? Oh, class.
Yeah, I nabbed her to perform that night. That was actually, it was very funny. It was good.
But so I interrupted, and I interrupted because the whole point of was when you were talking about the workshop of the glove, and there is
Yeah.
one video where you're using the I suppose the techniques that you learned in that video to
Yeah.
take off your gloves. So it's just from those kind of tiny details, which you would think are tiny details, to kind of major details. I suppose that was my point of trying to get across, that there is a huge amount to it.
Yeah, it's like even how you walk on the
Mm.
stage, and like you always come out in like big, beautiful shoes, but at some stage they come off.
Right.
So you have to be on your tippy toes to kind of
Mm.
keep that very long and elegant look when you're, instead of stomping around the stage.
Yeah.
You know, and there is a way, like there is dancing involved. So there is how you hold yourself, how you pose, how you hold your fans, how you hold your actual hands
Mm.
when you are walking across the stage. There's so much to think of. People just think you go on stage, you take it off, and that's it. I suppose people that haven't been to shows, they just
Yeah.
think, oh, you just go and take your clothes off. There's a lot of work that goes behind just
Mm.
one performance.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's just from seeing what I saw. But so I suppose the next question is, who is Memphis Shell?
Oh, Memphis Shell, she is my alter ego.
Okay.
Memphis, Miss Memphis Shell, or Memphis Shell.
Okay.
Yes. She is my alter ego, and she is my, I suppose, presence on stage.
Mm.
And a lot of people, I suppose, can get that confused. There will be times that I could be at a party and people will be like, oh, what, you know, giving you the nudge, and, oh, why don't you go up there and dance for us? And I'm like, I am not in Memphis mode right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like, I'm Michelle right now, so just let me have my drink and enjoy my night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like acting. You get into this character, like you create this character, this persona that you bring out onto stage.
Mm.
And it really does, like a lot of performers do have like a burlesque name, and it is their alter ego. It's like it's like a switch that goes off.
Okay.
And you go out, and it's almost like it's weird. I don't know if it's like this for everybody else, but it feels like this character is taking control of you, and you just basically do it. It's like you shut off and you do this performance.
Yeah.
You come off stage, you remember nothing about it, and you like cross your fingers and hope that somebody got a video so you can see what it's like. It's like you literally get like stage vision where you only see the lights.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, I suppose, that do go to burlesque shows would be like, oh my God, that performer looked at me. And it's like, chances are she didn't even see your face.
Yeah.
You know, she looked in that direction, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is that thing where you just it's like the adrenaline going through you. You forget until you get off stage, and then you like almost instantly go back to yourself, and you're like, oh, okay, that was good.
So we're like, okay, so obviously the switch goes on, and I can kind of understand, and maybe not fully, but where does the confidence come from then?
Oh, okay. So the confidence of burlesque.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that is something that I would be asked an awful lot, or I would be told an awful lot by people. Oh, you have so much confidence to get up on the stage and do that. I suppose it comes in time. When you're performing. You will always be nervous if you're performing, no matter who you are. You will always be nervous before you go out on stage. And the confidence actually comes from the audience and how the audience react to you. So if the audience are really enjoying you and they're clapping and they're cheering, you get really into it.
Yeah.
And you just really, really start to enjoy it. Like on a day-to-day basis, I wouldn't be the most confident person in the world. I'm the type of person that will wear jeans and horror t-shirts when I'm just out and about.
Okay,
you know?
well, there's nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah, no, there isn't. But yeah,
but the difference, I suppose, you mean the disparity between the two? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there is a big difference. It's like burlesque performers don't walk around like they're on stage all the time. You know, we're real people. You know, so, and we all have issues. You could be in the changing room of a burlesque room, and the girls or boy performers that are there, like it's, I suppose, it's like an open locker room type thing
Yeah,
where
okay.
somebody could turn around and say, oh my God, your figure is amazing. I wish I looked like this, or I
Yeah,
wish I had those, or,
yeah,
you know, yes, everybody wants to be somebody else, or they want to have something that somebody else has, or they'll want to be thinner, they'll want to be bigger. But yeah, like burlesque performers deal with confident issues just as much as everybody else.
yeah. And look, I suppose it's very hard for. Well, it's hard for me to understand the kind of confidence issues, because they're a separate kind of confidence. Because how
Yeah.
somebody might see it, I was in bands years ago, so you know, people would say to me then, like, how do you have the confidence to stand on stage? And I'm thinking, well, I'm very nervous going on stage. But with burlesque, because it's more, well, I was going to say it's more expressive, but there's certain differences of expressiveness to it. Like when I talk to you about creativity in burlesque, which is obviously very, very important. Like you say, it's not just something you could just walk on, do a bit of a dance, and then walk off. It's not about that. It's about, you're trying to make maybe not a political statement, but you're trying to make a comedic statement and stuff. So have you always been someone who's been creative?
I don't know. Creative. Oh, I don't know. Like I've never went to drama school. I've never went to dance class. I've never done anything like that ever.
Right.
Before I even started doing burlesque, and this is kind of dipping back into mental health, I actually did white collar boxing for console. I did
Well
that
done.
for I did that for like 3 years in a row. I did the boxing, the
Yeah.
white collar boxing, and that was fun, you know. So and
I'd
then
rather you
I
than
think,
me.
yeah, I mean, and like that's the same thing. You go up, you do it. You like, you know, you went in and you fought in the ring, and you
Yeah.
can't remember. You know, at the end of it, you're just like, I can't remember anything that happened up there apart from walking up.
Yeah.
You know, you just like, you get this thing where your brain just shuts off and locks it all out. But yeah, I did that for a few years, and then I actually was playing rugby with the Lady Buccaneers for a year.
Oh, wow.
And then I actually gave up rugby because I decided I was going to do burlesque, and I didn't want stud marks. So
It does make sense, though.
it's like, people think lady rugby is not tough. It is harsh,
Oh,
and
I'd imagine.
you get killed on a pitch, like. You know, but yeah, I gave that up then to pursue my career in burlesque.
But can you, when I say like creativity, because if someone tells you you're going to perform at a festival in 3 weeks' time, we'll say, and you have to come up with the whole routine yourself.
Yeah.
So that's like, I would have no idea where to even start. So there's creativity in kind of the routine, the costume, the music. There's so much, and it is all linked, because I can imagine that. Well, I don't know if it's happened to you, but I'm sure it's happened to people before, where it just didn't work, where everything just didn't come together, and they left the stage and they were annoyed with themselves for the decisions they made, you know?
Yeah, that can happen. Somebody can do a performance and it might fall flat. Thank God it hasn't happened to me yet. I'm very grateful for that. But yes, you could have an idea, but for me, I suppose if I have an idea, like when we came out of lockdown, I actually got to perform once in that little break that we had. I went down to Galway to the garden party with the Dirty Circus.
All right.
And I had this performance in mind, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I bought a costume. I had this big raven mask, this big witch's brim hat. I was going to perform to Gunship, which is a synthwave band.
Okay.
And I had this like all in my head, I'm going to do this. When I got down there, it was windy. And the performance I wanted to do, I had like big feathered fans, and then I had like silk fans. So these are all very like flowy, and
Yeah.
you know, and I was like, they're not going to work. So I literally just switched my song, and I just said, I'll go out and perform to that. It was a song I had performed to before. I just had a different costume on, and I was like, this will work.
Yeah.
So you kind of, I suppose you do have, I suppose I am creative. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
We have solved that one. Yes, we've decided you are creative. I was talking to a friend, and I was really trying to find it on the phone there, the message that they sent. And I had said I was looking up the history of burlesque, right? So I had obviously just commented on the day that I was doing it, and they said, oh, please tell me you're going to be interviewing Michelle Jinks. Because what was it? Now, it was like, she's beautiful, she's brave, and she's got balls. Now, that was the exact, I'm pretty sure that was the exact one. I wanted to make sure I had it right, but so that's, shows you the kind of, the way somebody from the outside of your burlesque community looking in would see it as something that's such a brave thing to do. And I guess from what I was when I was looking at the videos of you, empowering is definitely something. It must be.
Yes, it absolutely is. I suppose I'm not going to say you don't understand because you're a man, but
you can. I don't mind.
As a woman in Ireland, or
yes,
just
there you go.
As a woman in general,
yeah,
I suppose there is a lot of things that are expected from us, and a lot of things I suppose that we are expected not to do. And one of those, I suppose, is to not take your clothes off and to not expose yourself. And basically, women need consent to do everything, and not all men, but most men can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So yes, burlesque is absolutely empowering. I have had men say, "Oh, you're in a relationship, and how does he feel about that?"
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, he's very supportive, but it doesn't matter how he feels about it. It's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I'm the one who goes and performs. I was like, I'm still with my partner, but when I started doing burlesque, I did say to him that I was going to do burlesque. How did he feel about it? He was okay, but if he wasn't okay, I was still going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. It was something I wanted to do. It almost felt like this inner energy that I needed to get out. Like that, I had ideas in my mind that I wanted to create. I wanted to put them on stage, and I decided to do it. And then when I started doing it, I realized that it is actually very empowering, because it's not something you're forced to do. You get up on stage yourself. You can be any shape or size. Burlesque helps you to express exactly how you're feeling. You don't have to take everything off. And for anybody who is listening, with burlesque, in some countries, you don't get fully naked. You have pasties or tassels, which cover the offensive female nipple, and very offensive. And then you have your costume pants on, and like that. It is the art of the tease. So we do like to keep things covered and give you a little peek and then hide it again. But yeah, it is very empowering. And actually, anytime I perform at a show or anytime I host a show here in Athlone, it is actually always the women that come up afterwards, and they're like, oh my God, that was amazing. It's so empowering.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you go up there and you do that. Like, I'm not an extremely skinny person. My weight is something I stopped focusing on when I started.
So instead of a terrible edit, I thought I'd come in here and explain that this is where Michelle's Zoom call dropped out due to mine and John's negligence. So instead of doing a really terrible edit, I thought I'd just come in here and explain. So let's get back to part 2 of Michelle's episode. Cheers. Okay, so you mentioned about your weight there, and you were able to just, you seem to be able to just forget about it. Did you have a problem with it before? Was it ever anything that you had struggles with?
Yeah, I suppose you could say that to every woman.
But,
yeah, I suppose it's the world that we live in. We are constantly used as sex symbols, but only in a way that is seen fit or seen fit by media, I suppose. But I would have struggled with it when I was younger. And I would have struggled with it in my early adult years as well. And I actually before I started doing burlesque, a while before, I started doing a fitness class with Dave King and Sandra Griffin. So they ran a class called Send Shaper, and I think it's King Fitness now. I actually just started back and then lockdown. But I started working out with them, and I had lost like 3 stone with them. I would be a comfort eater, absolutely. And I started doing this class, and it was in the beginning a thing where I was like, oh, I have to lose weight. I have to be skinny. I have to be this. And then I started to, I healthily started to drop weight. I didn't really change my diet. I just did this class 3 to 4 times a week. and I started to notice that I was getting strong more than skinny.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I liked the fact that I suppose to me it was a feeling of control. I had control over this, but it was a healthy way of controlling it. And then I did Miss Burlesque Ireland. And I remember so it would have been the first time that I would have been photographed by a photographer on stage was Miss Burlesque Ireland. And I remember looking at the pictures and I was like, oh my God, I should have waited a year. I shouldn't have went on stage. You know, I suppose I was very bitter about the pictures that went up.
Okay.
And to me, I thought I looked absolutely horrific. And it is this thing that's ingrained in your mind because the fact that you're not, I don't know, let's think of somebody from our time, Claudia Schiffer or some shit.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was going to say
something like that.
I was going to say Kate Moss, but yeah.
Kate Moss, yeah, prime example, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm the type of person, I do like my food, so coffee and cotton buds and bananas wouldn't suit me.
Okay.
But not a diet we recommend, by the way, on this show.
Certainly not.
No, but I gave it, like, I think I performed a few more times afterwards, and then I looked back and I actually realized that it didn't matter. It just, and it's not that it's shut off completely. I do have days like everybody else. I'm like, oh no, a baggy jumper today or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I just appreciate what I have more now than I did before. And I suppose I think it might come with age. I don't know, because teenage girls, they do have it rough. You know, like there is always this pressure to look like whatever the big thing is.
Yeah.
I grew out of that, I suppose, in my kind of later 20s, where like that I started adapting this look of like the 1950s pinup. Whenever I went out, like my makeup would always be like kind of like the way it is now. It's like, you know, you have the top liner, you have the red lipstick, the hair will be like curled.
Yeah.
And I suppose I finally had kind of found an identity that I was comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then when you go into the burlesque world, you're not expected to be this person that's not real, because everybody is photoshopped. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you know, thin people are ugly. I'm not saying that at all. I am the type of person, I really do like to empower women, and I do have people that would come up to me and be like, oh, you know, I'm way too thin for the stage, or I don't have boobs and this sort of thing. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. It's about whatever you have, you make that work on stage. You bring that on stage, you make it your best asset on stage, and you work with that. But yeah, like burlesque has made me that little bit more comfortable in my skin. And I think it's because the fact that it's such a positive environment. The people that you were around when you were performing were all doing the same thing. We all want to empower women to feel, I suppose, better about themselves. That, you know, it's like, oh, well, look at me. I'm not your average sized person, and I'll go up on stage and I will perform and I will make you laugh. Might make you a little bit nervous. I might stare you down and make you feel very nervous. Memphis tends to do that a lot. She does the stare down. But yeah, it's like, I suppose after shows, when women were coming up to me and they were like, oh, it's so nice to see somebody on stage, you know, that has a bit of meat on them. And like, I don't find that offensive at all, you know. And they would be immediately, they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it that way. I'm like, no, I actually understand what you're saying. But yeah, I suppose that would help a bit, I suppose, with my confidence as well, is the fact that you are getting positive feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
From people when they see you on stage. You don't, like, when there's somebody in the audience and they're watching you perform, the amazement in their eyes is great. You don't have anybody sitting there looking in disgust. Yeah. You know, people, I suppose with burlesque, you learn that people don't like, not that they don't like, they're not as obsessed with what social media is telling you they're obsessed with, you know.
I was just going to say that it's the look of, like, I would imagine, like, they see somebody who's doing something that they may think that they'd never be able to do. And they see empowerment in that, in what you're doing. And all the kind of things like that we see on as a kind of a base level that we see every day are kind of gone out the window, because it's a spectacle and it's It's about you controlling the stage, putting on a performance, having these amazing costumes, and all of that thing kind of adds to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really
And
does.
so I'm going to do a little ad here because you mentioned gym, so I have to put this one in. I'm trying to do a link every time now, and it's just not working at all. I did it once. I got one once, but anyway, it's this for a Fusion training center, Monksland Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center, train like a warrior. Sorry. So you kind of touched on this in the last point actually, but I wanted to ask how supportive the burlesque community is.
They're very supportive, and I think a lot of people would be surprised, because I suppose people see like it is a very female dominated scene. There are male performers, there are like drag queens, you have drag kings as well, and I suppose a lot of people would think when there's a lot of women together, that there is going to be, I suppose, this cats at it backstage, but it's not like that at all. They're all very, very supportive. Like that, when I first did like Miss Burlesque Ireland, like the first time I ever performed was in Athlone, and it was actually for a charity gig in the piano bar. So that was like my first performance ever.
How many years ago was that, Michelle?
That would be 3 or 4.
Okay.
I think it might be 4. No, it's going on 4. That's what it is.
Okay.
Or it could be 4. I've lost track.
Well, the video I saw, you were at the Miss Burlesque Ireland 2016.
Yes. So I had literally started doing burlesque then.
Oh, right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I kind of got like I went to like one of those workshops I was telling you about, and it was like a fan dance workshop, and I met the producer of Miss Burlesque Ireland, who is Claire Ann Tobin. Azaria Starfire is her performer name, and I was just doing what everybody else was doing in the room, and she came over to me and she said, have you heard of Miss Burlesque Ireland? And I was like, yes. She was like, you need to apply. And I was like, I've never been on stage. And she was like, I don't care, you need to apply for Miss Burlesque Ireland. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll chance it. The following week I had my performance in or 2 weeks after, sorry, I had my performance in the piano bar, and a month after that I was on the big stage for Miss Burlesque Ireland. I had gotten through, and
That's some gold.
So I was walking into this world I did not understand, and actually this was the first time I had like actually met Sheer Madness, who had pointed me in the direction to go. And she seen me and she was so proud. She was like, you won't believe the amount of messages I get from people who want to do burlesque and they never do it. And she was like, look at you, you're here. And I was like, I don't know why I'm here. But I went out. I just wanted to see what it was like. And I went out and I performed. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, it was scary. It was definitely scary. But I'm after losing track of the point there. What were we talking about?
No, that's okay. No, it's just it was about the kind of the community or the backstage vibe. Yeah.
So that was it. That was my first experience of like the backstage, where I met like some of Ireland's most fantastic performers. You had the beautiful Arlene Caffrey, who is actually the founder of the Irish Pole Dance Academy up in Dublin. She's a fantastic, anybody who's been to my shows Only After Dark would definitely have seen her. She does burlesque and she does pole performance. Then you have the likes of Bonnie Boo. If anybody has watched RTE lately, she was doing like a twerk class on that.
Oh, really?
It was very good. And then you had like Santina Spitfire, Scarlett Van Tassel, Bella Curve. There is a lot of performers there, but they were aware that this was my first time on a big stage, and in this setting, they were also helpful. They were like, do you want a hand with your pasties? Your hair looks fine. Do you want me to brush the back of it? You know, it was just like, and they were there for everybody else. And, you know, it was just, when I stood back and just seeing this really nice, positive atmosphere, like it was a competition. Yeah. You know, keep that in mind. It was a competition. Yeah. Nobody was there trying to sabotage anybody. Everybody was like, your costume looks amazing, or Now, in burlesque, the biggest peeve that any judge would have is if you have a tag on your costume. So
Right.
say if you went into Penny's and bought yourself your 150 knickers
Yeah.
and brought it home and sparkled it up, if you had your tag on, you lose points for that.
Oh, really?
So they would even tell you, oh, you know, your tag is still on this, or that's twisted at the back. And when I seen that, I was like, yeah, this is definitely something that I want to get into.
Yeah.
And it has stayed like that, you know. I mean, there are some people that are not as nice as others, there always is.
Yeah,
but the trick is you just avoid these people, and I have done, and I've never had a bad experience. So
well, we got a message yesterday from Bradley Brock. Do you know Bradley Brock?
Yes, I do.
And he said, "Yes, Queen." It's what he said when he saw the
yes, Queen. Yeah,
that's what he said when he saw the message, because I didn't know who Bradley was, and I clicked in and I was like, well, seeing his pictures, he's definitely a performer, because he wasn't he was wearing quite dramatic makeup, but he was very again, just a sign of, like, you know, a cool person being supportive.
Being supportive, yeah. So Bradley Brock is a makeup artist, but also a drag queen, aka Miss Neon Love. Fantastic performer, also has been at my shows, and we actually performed recently in Galway together, and it was fantastic.
Actually, tell us about that. Time. tell us about that, because that was in between, wasn't it? Between lockdowns.
Yeah, it was strange, because when we went down, it was still, you had to keep distance from each other when we were anywhere near each other. We all wore masks. We wore masks when we were performing. And it was in a tent, it was outside, and because slowly but surely the restriction levels started to get tighter and tighter for gigs.
Yeah.
So like that, there was all these little teepees, and you and like 6 people could go into these teepees, and it was like you got your drinks brought to you, you got your food brought to you. It was all set up. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was like a little mini festival. And so we were performing at that with the Dirty Circus. It was amazing to get back on stage. I knew I missed it, but when I got back on stage, I was like, oh my god. It was a very windy night. But
you know, I saw the photos and or a video, I think you put up. Did you put a video up? I don't know if it was a video or a photo. And I saw the tents and the flags or whatever it was. You could see that they were moving in the wind. So it did look. But when was that? When did you say that was? Back in August, was it?
Oh my god, was it August? It's no, September.
It was September, was it?
It was no, wait, the end of August into September. I actually can't remember.
That's all right. It must have been a pretty hectic time. But so, like, do you think that you know, because we've all kind of had to sacrifice things during the lockdowns and the levels, changing the levels and stuff. But I think like, I've missed jiu-jitsu. That's my thing, and I can't do it now, right? And I think it does affect my mental health when I can't do it. I have to do different things. I can go running. I can do all those different things. But for you, if that's taken away, there isn't a different thing that can replace it.
No.
Would that be right? So would that affect you mentally, do you think?
Yes, it absolutely does. It's like, I mean, I know I'm not at it years, but it was like, when I started performing, I hit the ground running, and it just like blew up. I was everywhere, do you know? And I'm not saying that as, oh, look at me, I'm so great. But I started performing all over Ireland, and I actually ended up performing in Berlin as well.
Oh.
With one of my performances, Bloodlust, and that would have been from Miss Burlesque Ireland 2018.
Right.
But it's you do miss it. You miss the fact that, because it was all go all the time. I'd be working, I was doing shift work at the time. I'd be working a 3-cycle shift, and I could be coming off a shift. And like that, I was at the Electric Picnic last year. I left a 12-hour shift, a night shift, might I add, and I finished at 7 o'clock in the morning. I jumped into a car and went down to Portlaoise the Electric Picnic's in Portlaoise, isn't it? No.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's in Stradbally.
Yeah, it is.
Laois,
yeah, Stradbally. That's it. Stradbally. That's the word. So like that, they opened up a new area and it had the burlesque and cabaret tent. So I actually went down there with Tommy from the Dirty Circus for the promotion day. So I was down there and like, doing my makeup in the car on the way down to be there for this promo shoot. Then I went home, had 3 hours sleep, and went back to work for a 12-hour shift.
Oh my God.
So it was that kind of thing where it was every weekend there was like a gig going on, or I was putting on a show, and then there was nothing.
Yeah.
So you know, like currently I am sitting in my burlesque room. So it's basically, it sounds fancier.
Yeah, I was wondering what was, because I couldn't quite make out. Is it costumes and stuff on the bed?
That's not actually a bed.
Oh, is it not?
No. So that's just like, that's all what you're seeing there is all like feathers and costumes and.
I see.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah.
So you have, it is very difficult. Like when something that big and something that important to you gets kind of taken away. It's very difficult. I saw you were out actually. You were roller skating today, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, but it's still something that you're out and about and be able to do, I suppose.
Yeah, that was actually something that I decided to get back into in the last lockdown.
Okay.
I was just sitting at home and like that, I had no gigs, and I was like, I need to put my energy into something else.
Yeah.
So I decided just to order myself a pair of boot skates, as I call them, or any other Irish person, boot skates. So I decided to get them, and then it just kind of snowballed. A few friends, family decided to get them as well, and I just started going out skating. And like that, I went today. I went up the Greenway, and it was great. Leafy, but it was great.
Leafy, yeah, I would imagine it is, and a bit slippy and all the rest. Like, so listen, I'm just gonna read another quick ad, and then we're gonna get into some horror, if that's good with you. Yes. So this is an ad for James Crawwell, a friend of mine, and one of the coaches in CrossFit and Fusion, and he works out of Fusion. He's a neuromuscular therapist, sports therapist to me. And the treatments provided are sports massage. He has a range of techniques he uses. He uses cupping, which is dynamic cupping, and static cupping. Most people have probably seen that. I had it done recently. It's great. And he uses the instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. And it's like a weird instrument, old razor-looking device that he uses on soft tissue. Very nice and relaxing. He massaged both myself and John. We would recommend him fully, not just because he did it, but because he's very good. And you can find him on Insta at Crawwell17_. And also his phone number is 089 402 3117. So, what is it about horror that you love so much?
Oh,
it's a hard question.
What is it I love? I don't know. I suppose it's everything. It's everything from the storylines to the big plot twists to the atmosphere of the film and the special effects. Absolute lover of special effects.
Do you prefer digital special effects, what we have now, or do you prefer the special effects that are, I can't remember the name of what's on them now, but like in The Thing, where they actually make the actual monsters?
Practical effects.
Practical effects, that's it. Would you prefer the practical?
Yes.
Yeah. I agree 100% on that.
It's like the reason why I prefer it, and I suppose anybody else that prefers like practical effects with horror movies, is because it's physically there. That thing, it's there, like, you know.
Yeah, it's in the room.
Yeah, it's there, and if something is computerized, your brain just does that thing with you where it's like, you don't even need to be afraid of this because it's not even there. You know, it's a green screen. I wouldn't worry about it, you know?
I'm 100% in agreement. And I'm actually going to talk a bit more about that, especially because of the t-shirt you're wearing at the moment. But do you have any kind of early Halloween memories?
Yes, I do. And I suppose I'm like every other Irish person where it was like the really bad plastic mask, which always cracked and cut your face.
Oh yeah, and then the thing snapped as well. The
band would always snap. Yeah, and then you'd have the classic black bag with the holes cut in for the arms.
Yeah.
And then the long plastic witch fingers. Yeah, and then I suppose you go trick-or-treating and you always get like a heap of monkey nuts.
Yeah, you always get that, and you didn't want them at all.
Yeah, I actually like monkey nuts.
Yeah,
But
well, I know I'd eat them
yeah.
now. I'd eat them
Oh
now,
no,
but
but back then I loved them as well. Like,
oh, did you?
yeah, I did. I really did. The worst part was though is if you got like an apple or an orange and it was in the bottom of your bag, and I don't know, somehow it got smashed.
Yeah.
And then there was always one person you went to that would give you like a handful of money, and they like it was just coins and stuff like that,
Just,
and they
yeah,
throw it in,
coppers.
and then you're taking it out of the bag, and everything is stuck to
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
it was disgusting. Yeah. Did you
yeah.
play any games?
Yes. Obviously you would have played like bobbing for apples.
Yeah, of course.
What else was there?
Did you play the one with the string from the ceiling with the apple hanging on it, and you had to try and
Yes.
bite the apple? Oh, so annoying, that game.
It's so annoying. It's so stupid.
It's so stupid. There's no fun. Like, at least the bobbing for apples was kind of a bit more fun, you know?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
So you went trick or treating and all that.
Yeah,
Do you have good memories of Halloween then?
I do.
Yeah.
My favorite memories are always in around Halloween, October. I love October.
Yeah.
I just like, don't get me wrong, everybody thinks I'm so dark. I love Christmas as well. But I suppose with my fascination with the macabre and stuff, it's just like I just love October. I love the feel, I love the air, I love the smell of the chimneys being lit for the first time in a long time, the color of the leaves, all that sort of thing. And it's like, in a sense, if you are very much, I suppose, a horror person and a witchy person, it is kind of like you're at the start of your new year, you know, rather than January type thing, you know. But
it's a gorgeous month. It's like when it comes to things like you say about the leaves changing different colors, and that because we light fires out here and we use turf, and you know, even lighting them. And the smell of turf in the kitchen, this kind of faint smell of turf in the kitchen is a nice feeling, and that little bit of crispness in the air, and you know, it's quite a nice and kind of for me, it's quite a comforting time of the year for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure.
I think it's the fact that you get to have that. I suppose during the summer is great, you're outside and it's, you know, but you never get to have that cozy night.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, it's like, you can sit and watch Netflix and whatever, but it's not the same.
No.
It's like you get settled earlier in the evening.
You do, yeah.
You know, that sort of way.
Yeah.
It's like, and I know for some people, when the winter is coming in, it's not a good time for a lot of people. But for me, I love it. I do love it.
Yeah, there is, of course, there's a little bit of kind of darkness there as well, and with the nights drawn in, and people have the seasonal affective disorder and things like that, and I can understand that as well. But yeah, there's something about October for me, and it's I have this, and I'm going to lead in with this to our next kind of thing. We're going to talk a bit about horror films. I remember when I was a kid, and I was about 11, I'll say. Okay, so I'm at home with my two brothers, and my younger brother's gone to bed, and my older brother is, well, we'll say 13, and he wants to watch Halloween. He just wants to watch it, and he is bigger than me, and he'll beat me up otherwise. I want to watch anything that's not Halloween because I was just terrified of it. And King Kong, the original King Kong, was on the other channel, and I was just like, at the time, desperate to watch it, even though I wasn't really. But I remember watching Halloween, and it is now my favorite film, my favorite horror film of all time. And then it was just so terrifying. And I think, and just for the people who can't see, Michelle is wearing a Halloween t-shirt. And I think what frightened me so much about Halloween was the fact that it was a man. Okay, so it could be just any man. I know he was indestructible and all that. Pretty much was indestructible. But so he was a man with a knife walking around. He's wearing a mask. But there was the whole idea of like terror in suburbia thing where, you know, I lived in a cul-de-sac with some trees and some lights, and it wasn't that far removed from the streets of, you know, what's the name of the place? Somethingville. But it just scared the life of me, and it still is my favorite horror film. So could you tell us some of your favorite horror films?
Well, Halloween would be one of my favorite horror movies. John Carpenter did absolutely capture Halloween in that, like even the feel of the film, the color and everything is perfect. And as you said, the thing is about Mike Myers that is the scariest thing of all is the fact that he's just pure and simply evil. There is no reason, there is no explanation to why he is the way he is, which is actually more real. You know, there isn't always a case of like, you know, abusive parents or something like that, you know, or like, you know, or the neighborhood they grew up in and all this. It was like, no, he's just this way. And that's why he was so creepy. But like that, John Carpenter knew what he was doing, which leads me into what my favorite film is.
Okay.
But no, I have to say one of my favorite films because there's so many different genres. So you know, like from like the Hammer horror, like the monsters, you're talking about like The Creature from the Black Lagoon would be my favorite. But one of my favorite films, it doesn't matter what time it's on. If I see it on the television at all, I'm watching it. There's nothing else is happening. I'm watching it, and it is John Carpenter's The Thing. Kurt Russell, absolutely love it so much. And you did touch on that a few minutes ago when you were talking about the practical effects. Where you have like Rob Bottin who did the special effects for it. He actually like ended up in hospital. John Carpenter had to put him in hospital because of the fact that he was like just had himself absolutely exhausted from working on the special effects. And then he was like breathing in all this poisonous gas and plastic that he was burning and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, he is an absolute master. And if anybody hasn't seen the original John Carpenter's The Thing, you should absolutely watch it. And then just like that, as I said before, a horror film for me, the atmosphere is very important for me to enjoy it, because I'll just never go back to it. But it just has that perfect feeling of isolation. And like, I suppose for any of the listeners who's never seen it, it's basically there's a group of scientists who are stuck in the middle of nowhere, up in, I don't know.
I think it's in the Arctic.
It's in the Arctic, yeah. So they're like a bunch of scientists come across them, and they find this dog. This dog is a thing that was discovered, and so basically this thing transforms into you. It attaches to you. It transforms into you, and it is a perfect replica. So basically what happens is these guys are all trapped together and they don't know who is the thing.
Yeah. And
so
do you know what's amazing? Without ruining it, the ending to anyone, I love like ambiguous endings. I like when I don't know, you know, it's not just bang and that's it. Now, I'm not going to say anything more about it because there will be people haven't, but just that particular film and that ending is just perfect in that, you know. But sorry, go on, I interrupted there.
No, you're okay.
What about can I ask you about things like, so the thing is not, doesn't fall into this category, but say it's something that's, you're saying about the Hammer film, so we'll say like Wolfman and The Invisible Man and those kind of ones. Frankenstein was part of the Hammer, wasn't it? Hammer films. Yeah, like Frankenstein is a brilliant film. Like it's the original. It's
beautiful, so it's a beautiful film.
There's that shot of the burning windmill in it is just like, you don't really, it's hard to get that now. Never mind back in 31, I think it was 31. But so like you say, there is a lot of genres in the horror film. And do you think like now there's still good horror films coming out, like there's still good ideas coming out, or do you think a lot of it's been kind of covered?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of it has been covered, but like, I mean, I think the most important part is if you are going to take an idea that's not original, say if you're going to make like a slasher movie, sometimes it's best just not to change the formula. And as it may come across as predictive to other people going, oh, you know, she's going to run up the stairs and she's going to get killed and whatever. But sometimes it's good not to mess with a horror movie. Like, I know that Wes Craven totally touched on that with Scream. That was a brilliant idea to do that, like, you know, and they're actually watching Halloween in that.
Yeah, that's right.
They're watching Halloween. But yeah, it's like there is some good movies coming out. I mean, horror movies nearly took an awful nosedive there, like a good few years ago,
Yeah.
where it was just jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. And, you know, it's like the likes of The Thing, or even like The Shining, something that's like psychological, that like kind of gets into your brain. That sort of thing is a lot more scarier than somebody just jumping into the camera all the time. Like the first film, I suppose, that kind of made me sit right up in my seat was The Conjuring.
Yeah.
And that was, and I went to the cinema to see that, and there was a part in it that actually made my blood run cold when I watched it. And so, like, the last film that had done that to me was actually The Exorcist, which absolutely petrified me.
Yeah, that was.
It petrified me. Now, I only watched it again. Now, for someone who absolutely loves horror, it scared me that much that I haven't watched it in about 10 years.
That's a great.
You know,
that's a great example.
Yeah, so I was like, it absolutely scared the life out of me. But I watched it the other night, and like that, it has that atmosphere. It's very slow paced at the start, and even at that, the practical effects are amazing in that. Even like the demon itself, just that like that little flash of his face.
That is deadly.
Yeah, it's like, it's all very, very good. And how it's put together. Like, I do, as a horror movie fan, I really appreciate it, but still, it does kind of give me the creeps. I'd watch it again, but I'll wait a while.
I think like when I look at like the modern day horror films, and I think they have their, I would agree with you fully on the jump scare, because you can only get away with that for so long. But I also think what they've done recently, there has been a few really good ones that come out, but they have to be almost hugely original. And I think what I loved, a film that I loved, and the Suburbia thing was there, and even the synth kind of score reminded me a little bit of Halloween, and It Follows. And I just remember watching that going, gee, like, to me, it was the idea, the concept was very, very original, because it was, we've seen the whole thing of some, you know, like Michael Myers coming after the person, they're relentlessly coming after them. But the idea that this was passed through intercourse, just to keep it scientific over here for the young people listening, but passed through that way, and then this was coming on, and the way that the characters, you got to see their morals, like, and their ethics, like, will I pass it on, or will I, you know, or should I try and take it on myself, and all this kind of thing. And I just thought that there was a run of films like The Babadook, that Get Out, you know, even Us and Midsommar, and what's the other one the guy from Midsommar did? He did one before that.
Hereditary.
No,
he didn't do. Yeah, that was very good, actually.
Yeah, that was
very good.
When she came in, right? This isn't spoiling anything. It is kind of spoiling something, but you know what? Sorry. But when he's sitting on the bed, and she comes in, oh my God, like, it frightened the light. I was watching on my own, just in the room next door there, and it lifted me. And it was about 10 in the morning. It wasn't the dark, you know, I didn't have the lights all over, and it lifted me out of my seat. And but again, it comes back to the originality now that they kind of have to push, because for yourself and myself, who watch horrors maybe quite a lot, the jump scare is just like, I don't care anymore for them.
Yeah, no, it's not. You know, it's like, if you want people to jump a lot, fair enough. But if you want to make a good horror movie, just make a good horror movie. Like, I watched Video Dead last night.
Okay.
So the idea of that, now it's a movie from the 80s. I recommend that you should watch it. It's very good. So Video Dead is basically, this guy lives in a house. He gets a TV delivered to his house with a mirror in front of it, like with the shiny side facing inwards. And he's like, oh, you know, this is not for me. The television comes in, and basically what happens is there's a movie that starts playing on the TV, and what is inside the TV comes out. And it's very good. It's like, I think it's an hour and a half long, which is, it's long for a horror movie for back then, I suppose. It's good, you know, like, and I do that. I go back an awful lot, and I watch stuff that I haven't seen. Like, one of my favorite Christmas films to watch is Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas. That is amazing. And like that, the idea is so simple. A guy escapes from, you know, a mental institution, and then there's like this sorority house with girls in it, and what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And it's great. And like that, the atmosphere in that film is absolutely fantastic as well.
The voice at the end when
Oh,
the credits are rolling is the scariest part of the film. I think it just creeps
yeah.
me out. That and yeah, I watched it. I read the original Psycho again the other day and hadn't seen it maybe for 3 or 4 years now. But again, like that is all about atmosphere. It's not so much about scares because the shower scene isn't frightening to us anymore because we've seen all that. You know, I imagine at the time it was unbelievable, but it's still very well made. The scene is still very well shot, but like a slasher film, we've seen them, but it's the atmosphere that he gets out of it and the kind of tone and the performances. And Anthony Perkins is so creepy as you know, he's so creepy. So yeah, I just there's still good films being made, obviously good horror films being made, but you know, the classics are classics for a reason. And I think those things like Hereditary and It Follows will become classics in time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Like It Follows, I thought was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But what it did is it took some of the like original horror movie formula and just kind of changed it just a little bit. I mean, like with every horror movie, I mean, it's always a case of like, you know, the teenagers being reckless and, you know, they're all having sexual intercourse when they shouldn't be. And,
you
you
for
know,
that.
and then, yes, and then you have the final girl who is always normally like a virgin.
Yeah.
And they always play with the idea of like death and sexual intercourse, and it's all like it, you know, it like they mix this for a reason, you know, that sort of way, because it's nearly like they're luring you into like a false sense of security, and then they're like, oh, remember you're watching a horror movie. You know, and to mix those two feelings together like that, you know, it's like it is, you know, it's a good way to go, and I think that's why It Follows works so well. Like
it's
that,
funny,
you know.
actually. There's just sorry for cutting across you, but what you mentioned, I didn't even think about it there, but until you said it, you say about the kind of irresponsible partying teenagers, and It Follows, they're not like that at all. They're actually quite.
No.
Well, I suppose you'd see them as, without slagging them, but like nerdy kind of kids, aren't they? Like one of them's reading Dostoevsky's The Idiot, and there is though, and they're watching. He's watching a lot of creature features, and they did remove that side of things. There wasn't just some kids who were being idiots just running around the place. It wasn't like that at all with It Follows. That was great about it, actually.
Yeah, they did. They took time out to actually change the characters.
Yeah,
that it wasn't just your typical I suppose like that Scream really points that out of like, you know, you have the jock and you have the cheerleader and then you have this slightly nerdy friend that, you know, she's the one that'll be the final girl, and you know, that they decided to change that up, but like that, I suppose it made you more interested in the characters. Oh, like, oh no, hang on a minute, this is different.
Yeah,
you watched it and you got sucked into it, like, you know.
Yeah, it's like what's going on here? Because like in Halloween, it was only Jamie Lee Curtis's character that wasn't like misbehaving as such. They weren't like misbehaving to modern day standards, we'll say. But back at the time, they were probably misbehaving. Like in Jamie Lee Curtis was seen as the straight one who was going to look after the kids on Halloween, while everybody else went out and enjoyed themselves. You know.
Yeah, like in the part where she's in the car with her friend, and I think her friend is dropping her off to babysit, and or they're heading to school or something, but her friend is smoking I suppose a joint.
I think it is a joint, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, but she does have some, doesn't she?
Does she?
I think she does.
I'll have to. I will be watching on Halloween on the day, so we will find out. But no, you're probably right. She probably does actually. But she would be more straight laced, I suppose, than the rest of the characters in it.
Yeah, I think she is very straight laced. She is the bookworm, and like that, she's been a good girl and she's babysitting and she's doing her job correctly. But I suppose with her, and I suppose it gets overlooked a lot. It's like, yeah, okay, you will always have the nudity scene. Do you know what I mean? Where you'll barely see a boob or something. Do you know? And like you have that, and I know a lot of women are kind of like, oh, you know, like women in general are like victimized by horror movies, but it's not. It's like some of the best heroines that you'll ever have come from horror movies, or they come from thrillers. I mean, like you look at Ripley, Sigourney Weaver from
Yeah.
Alien. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, come on,
Yeah.
she's absolutely amazing. Like, and like that Jamie Lee Curtis in
Yeah.
Halloween, she is, you know, she's fantastic in
Yeah.
it. She's scared, but of course she's scared.
Of course,
You
yeah.
know,
But she carries
like,
on into about 19 other films as well. So she's knocking
yeah,
around all that time. She's great. But
yeah,
look,
you know,
if there's anything to take away from this conversation for people who don't watch horrors, is you should definitely go watch some horrors, because
you should definitely watch some horrors.
yeah,
And if you need any tips on where to start or where to go, like if you want to watch some good horror movies, you should definitely drop us a line. I
for
would
sure.
definitely be able to recommend some good horror movies for you, and good bad horror movies.
Yes, and this episode will be out on Wednesday, so you've got 5 days, 4 or 5 days to play around with, anyways, to watch some good horror films in the meantime.
Yeah.
But Michelle, were you into, or do you still do it? Like, you know, you see people go on Halloween now. Obviously, this year won't be happening, but were you someone that liked to go out and get dressed up for Halloween?
Oh God, yeah. And I just started, yeah. I started, I suppose, at a kind of when it wasn't really a thing here. You know, people didn't really dress up, and I suppose there was always that thing every year. You would go to like the joke shop and you'd rent something, and then I think I did that for 2 years, and then I was like, no, I'm just going to start doing my own Halloween costumes. Like I dressed up as like Mia from Pulp Fiction. I dressed up as Daphne from Scooby-Doo. I've dressed up as Elvira, Morticia. I've done Nazi zombies. The Nazi zombie one was actually, yeah, it was
a
actually
classic,
very,
yeah.
it is, but it's a very interesting costume to wear out, because I mean, like that, you're not going to find a swastika lying around. So I had to make one.
No.
And I was standing at the bank machine dressed up. Now, when I say, you know, a Nazi zombie, this was not a sexy Nazi zombie or a girly Nazi zombie.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, full on dead face, jaw hanging off, contact lenses in, and blood everywhere. And I had like this long trench coat, the hat, the whole lot. And I was standing at the bank machine, and somebody said to me, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I was like, why? And they were like, because you're wearing that on your arm, talking about the swastika.
Oh, yeah,
and I was like, okay, but if I was dressed up as Freddy Krueger, would you stand there and tell me I should be ashamed of myself that I'm killing people in their sleep? It's, you know, it was a Nazi zombie. I'm not dressed up as just a Nazi, you know.
Yeah.
But there's been like a good few kind of costumes that I've went through, and I would absolutely love to dress up. But I suppose this year, like I'll dress up this year. I'll probably like, you know,
why not
stand outside my garden and look at the big blue moon that we're getting.
Why not take some photographs and share the kind of Halloween love, because that's all we have. Nobody can go trick-or-treating or out or anything, so I think it'll be quite nice for people to dress up, you know. I think you know, have a little party at home. And that's, you know, can I ask you before we go about so you've a partner now for a number of years?
Yeah.
And did you get married, or did you have a civic ceremony or anything recently?
Yes, last year we got married, not in a church. No offense to anybody who's ever got married in a church, but we went to I suppose the registry office down in the primary care centre, and then later that day we had one of our friends officiate the wedding in the Sheraton Hotel. It wasn't a traditional wedding. I didn't wear white, I wore red.
I was gonna let me just put in for this point, because my friend went to it actually, and Vinny Kennedy.
Okay.
And Vinny said to me he was going to your wedding. Now I knew of you from around the town, and you know the what you do, the burlesque thing, and I know you've done them in various places, and so that was cool. Fine, he went to the wedding. I never asked him how it was. You know the way things go out your head. But then when, like a good researcher that I'm really trying to be, obviously I'm friends with you on Instagram, and I saw, or Facebook as well, but I saw a photo of the two of you, yourself and what's your husband's name?
Joe.
Okay, so yourself and Joe, you're wearing a pretty striking outfit, really nice outfit. I'm colorblind as anything, so the colors for me aren't always the best, but this is the way my mind thinks, right? I was just thinking that cake looks unreal.
Yes.
And it was like, describe the cake for us.
So basically the cake was, I think it was 3 or 4 tiers.
Yeah.
And it was red and black. It
Yeah.
had black roses on it. It had kind of like cobwebs and I suppose black blood running down through the cake. And then there was like 2 little cakes either side. One was The Walking Dead, kind of, that was my little cake, and then the other one was like Fight Club, which would have been Joe's cake.
Right.
And then then on the top of it, then I had like little pops, which were customized by my friend's daughter. So Tina Kiernan, who owns Love My Hair Salon in town, her daughter Brooke actually customized these pops. So my pop was originally Phoenix from X-Men, and then the other one was actually 11 from Stranger Things.
Right.
For Joe. And then we had, I think it was a little figurine from I think there was a film called Pets or something like that, and she basically made these like little figurines look like us. And so yeah, the little dog was like our dog Rick, who was our ring bearer on the day.
Yeah, I was
he was one of the ring bearers.
And do you know why I'll mention your dog? Because I looked at the photo and I had a look at your outfits, and you looked beautiful in your outfit, and Joe looked very handsome, and the cake looked class, right? And just as I was, swiping the photo, I left the photo and I went, what was? And I brought back the photo, and there was your little dog, who is very, very small.
Yeah.
It's Rick is his name, is it?
Rick, yeah, he's a little Jack Russell. Yeah.
It's just one of those things where you, it was one of those like double takes where you're like, what? What did you see? And here he is under, I think he's in Joe's arm, or maybe it's in your arm. But yeah, I just had to mention it because the cake looked class, whoever did that cake. And the outfits were really cool as well.
Yeah, it was I suppose a wedding that a lot of people hadn't went to, because the entertainment on that night was actually the last 3 reigning Miss Burlesque Irelands performed as a present.
Excellent.
So there was burlesque at my wedding, and I suppose a lot of people that was there had not seen burlesque or what it was, and they got to see. Now it was PG, obviously, because my nieces and nephews were there, and it was all beautiful, like fan dance performances. One of the performers did like a belly dance. And then one of the other performers, Arlene, she actually performed to the Smiths, because myself and Joe will be massive Smiths fans. So she performed to the Smiths as a little, token to us. But it was a beautiful day, very warm day, but it was a great day. Yeah, it was rough.
You were wearing dark clothes, so maybe that's what drew the heat. I don't know.
Well, no, I was wearing like a red velvet dress.
I'm so bad with colors, like it's.
Yeah, and I had a long black veil.
Do you know what I got mixed around? It was the other way around. I had it in my head. It was a red veil and a black dress. That's where I messed it up.
Yeah, no, everybody expected me to wear black. I was going to wear black, but then somebody was like, "Oh, but you can't expect everybody else to not wear black if you're wearing black." And I was like, "Okay, I'll wear red." So
It's my wedding. This is Michelle. It's been very nice talking to you. I really appreciate you doing the Zoom thing with us. I really appreciate you being one of the people that said, "Sure, everybody's doing Zoom now," and then I kind of went, "Okay, I'll do Zoom," because I was all day, and my landlady would tell you if you asked her. I've been moping around all day, just annoyed that the sound's not going to be good or whatever, and it sounded great, and there's been no cutouts or anything like that, and I'm very happy. So, like I said, thank you very much for coming on and giving some of your Saturday night up to us. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, I'm going to go and get a Chinese now and watch a horror movie.
Yes. I just before you go, I'll read this stuff out, and then I'll get a little photo, some sort of a photo on the screen, and we'll do it that way. So, thanks to John. I was going to call him producer John, but he disappeared after 2 minutes.
He did, yeah.
Thanks to Megan and John's family. Thanks to Jer, my mom, my dad, my grandfather. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Weekly Wheatley. If you want to find us at the podcast platforms, we're on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, etc. Questions for episode 40, send them on to us. They can be for me or John or for both of us. Like I said, thanks to everyone for listening. Michelle, thank you very much to yourself. I'm going to try and find where the stop button is, and that's going to be that. I hope everybody has a lovely bank holiday weekend, and you too, Michelle, of course.
Thank you very much, and happy Halloween.
Oh, thank you. Of course, happy Halloween. Right, all the best, everyone. Take care. Bye.